All right, welcome one more time to the ASSISTments New User Webinar Part 2, a deep dive on data for illustrative math teachers. My name is Dawn Peterson. I'll do a little bit more introduction of myself in just a couple of moments. For today's webinar, we'd love you to leave your microphone on mute. We are expecting a larger group today. You can choose to have your video on or off, whatever you're comfortable with, but we do love to see you who we're sharing with. And please use the chat throughout the presentation to post questions, wondering, ask for resources. We do have a chat moderator, a few chat moderators with us today. So if you have any questions, please go ahead and share those in the chat. And just a note, anyone who has registered for this session will receive a follow-up email tomorrow morning with a copy of both the slide deck, including all the links that we referenced today, and a video recording of today's session. All right, so the goal of today's session, which is part 2 of a 2-part series, is that participants will learn how to maximize ASSISTments data to support student learning alongside illustrative math. So we're going to start out today with a few introductions, an overview of what ASSISTments is, and just a couple elements of recap from part 1 last week's session. We're going to talk about analyzing ASSISTments data. I'll show you how to access that data and basically what it means. We'll move on to using data to inform instruction and discuss with students. And then we'll close up with some wrap-ups and next steps. So just to introduce myself again, my name is Dawn. I'm the Director of Content and Partnerships here at the ASSISTments Foundation. I was an 8th grade math teacher in Massachusetts for 14 years. And because I was local to the organization, I stumbled upon ASSISTments and never went back. I used ASSISTments for 10 years regularly in my in-person classroom with students. And then they said, hey, come on board with us. You seem like an expert. So now I'm on the support end and I help with different partnerships like Kendall Hunt and also make sure teachers are comfortable using our platform. I'll now, first, before I turn it over to Carrie, I'd just love to flag that we have a couple members of the Kendall Hunt team with us today, Angie and Marty. So any questions that you have about specifically the Kendall Hunt grade 6 all the way through high school curriculum, please put them in the chat. They're going to be monitoring the chat throughout and can help answer those questions for you. And now I'll turn it over to Carrie, the chat moderator for today.
Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. My name is Carrie Moy, and I will be helping with chat moderation today and sharing a little bit more about ASSISTments. My background is similar. I'm the program associate here at ASSISTments, and my background is similar to Dawn's. I was in the classroom for 12 years teaching middle school math. I actually use the illustrative mathematics curriculum and in conjunction with ASSISTments, and just fell in love with how the program really transformed my classroom. And so excited to sort of share that with you today.
All right, Carrie, and you want to take it from here in this first section?
Oh, yes, absolutely. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what ASSISTments is to kind of fill you in. It's a forever free math assessment tool that integrates with Google Classroom. And for me, like, it was huge in saving me time with its content library. It just had so much available for students and to pull from. And then it fosters student growth mindset. There was a lot of perseverance when it came to getting immediate feedback for students. And so let me talk a little bit about why. So go back one. Thank you so much.
Sorry, Gary.
Basically what happens is it's daily formative data that I can use to inform my instruction. So we're going to talk a lot today about that data report and how to use it to quickly identify which students need the most intervention, as well as which students are ready for challenges. And gives students regular and timely feedback. I think that's what my students loved the most. They didn't necessarily need me right there because they could get that immediate feedback through ASSISTments, and it really increased their autonomy and their engagement in class because they could track their own learning with the informed progress. So if you don't believe me, ASSISTments is actually proven by research. We're a tier 1 rated evidence for ESSA and one of 3 middle school math interventions with strong evidence to support, essentially showing that 75 we can show 75% more learning in the classroom compared to classrooms that did not use assessments. And so it's proven to show, to narrow the achievement gap, which I think is so important at this next year as we're thinking about supporting COVID recovery. And so for me, what it really makes teaching easier. Over 20,000 teachers use assessments. And like I said before, it's really helpful because you don't need to scour the internet looking for available in the content library. Students get immediate feedback, right? And so it's really effective decisions when you're using data to inform your instruction. All right, I'm going to pass it back to you, Dawn, if there's anything I'm missing.
No, looks great. Thanks, Carrie. All right, so if you were with us last week, you heard us talking about the typical teacher routine, which this might look familiar to you, that first, when you're looking for students to complete independent practice, you're going to go ahead and assign using whatever delivery method you may be using already. Students are going to complete that assignment, fingers crossed. It's the beginning of the year. I guess we don't know what to expect yet, but then the teacher grades. And step 4, great teachers always use whatever the data is that they have, worksheets, some other math platform to inform their instruction. So ASSISTments is just a enhancement of that routine. So last time we talked about step 1, how teachers can assign content from the ASSISTments content library, including all of the Kendall Hunt illustrative math resources you're used to seeing. Step 2 is students are going to get immediate feedback as they complete their work, so they're not just sitting in mystery wondering how they did on their assignment. Today, we're really going to dive into 3 and 4. So step 3, teacher analyzes the data report instead of taking all your valuable time grading. And then lastly, teacher shares data with students and uses it to take action. So like Carrie mentioned, we're really going to be diving into what you can do with ASSISTments data rather than just knowing how to read the report. So step 1, we're going to do a little recap of last time of just steps 1 and 2 quickly for those of you who may have forgotten or for those of you who missed that first session. Throughout the presentation today, I'm going to be live demoing. We're going to be reviewing on slides. So hopefully you leave today with everything that you need to feel comfortable using ASSISTments in your classroom. All right, so just a recap of the curriculum we have in ASSISTments. You all are here today because you're using the Kendall Hunt Illustrative Math curriculum. So I just want to highlight for you middle school teachers out there, we have the IM Middle curriculum in addition to the 6 through 8 accelerated. And then for high school, we have Algebra 1, Geometry, and Algebra 2. All of the student-facing practice offers immediate feedback for students, and then the teacher is going to get class and student-level data reports. For each of the individual lessons, when available, you're going to see student tasks or student-facing tasks, including the warm-ups. Those are always going to be the first question. Correct me if I'm wrong, Angie and Marty. You're going to see the cool-down assignments, and you're going to see the practice problem sets. In addition, we do have versions A and B unit assessments when available. So Carrie is actually going to put, if you don't mind, Carrie, putting contact@assistments.org in the chat. If you're looking for access to these unit assessments, they are under lock and key, so students don't stumble upon them in our platform. So all you have to do is email us at contact@assistments.org and just say, I'm looking for the illustrative math assessments, and we will send those along to you. So I just want to show you real quick in the platform, for those of you, again, who weren't here last week or just need a reminder, the different ways that you can assign content. First is browsing by content library. So you're going to click right into, start at assistments.org and click into the Kendall Hunt Illustrative Math library. Find the grade level you're looking at assigning, finding the unit. I would expect most teachers are entering at unit 1, and then clicking right into the lesson. So like I said, you can find all the practice problems right here, all the student-facing tasks, and then the cool down. And when you're ready to assign, you're going to go ahead and make sure you're selecting. Let me give you an example of this. You can select all or just select a couple problems to assign. That's up to you. Let me see, I'll choose this one here. And then when we're ready to assign, we can assign right now, or you can save to my problem sets, which is basically doing a little prep work and planning out, and you will be able to modify and edit later. When you assign, you'll be able to modify the name of the assignment if you choose your LMS, Google Classroom, or Canvas. Very first time, if you haven't done this yet, you're going to import the classes that already exist in your LMS and bring those into the assessments library. So you'll be able to choose to assign to one or multiple classes. If you are interested in assigning assessments, I just want to note this, anyone looking for a more summative mode, you do have to go up to your name up here on the right and turn on the test mode feature. And Carrie, if you have a minute, maybe you can put that enable test mode user resource in for any teachers that are looking to have a more summative experience for the assessments. And then you can choose the problem order, set a release and due date if you wish, and then assign to class. The other way you can assign is searching by standard and curating your own problem sets. So if you are looking at doing a little pre-assessment for your students, you can type in a Common Core code, or you can start to type in a description. That's going to give you a list of all the problems within the assessments content library across curricula that align to that skill. But then you can filter by Kendall Hunt Middle and High School and find problems that are specifically aligned with the illustrative math curriculum. So you can then go ahead and select the problems that you want to put into a problem set. That happens to be a very long one. And then I'll just show you here, if you are interested in doing a little plan work, you could save to my problem sets, choose a name, and save. And then you'll have all of your custom problem sets right over here on this list. There's inequalities. All right, so let me bring it back over here. So just to recap that, you have the option to search by curriculum or by standard. And again, you can filter by specific Kendall Hunt illustrative math content in there. Assign time options are going to allow you to select some assignment options for your students. And that takes us through step one. So I would love to hear in the chat right now from the group how you've tried using ASSISTments to assign illustrative math content so far. And for those of you who haven't started yet, I'd love to hear what you think your entry point is. Will you start with warm-ups, student tasks, collaborative work, cool downs, or maybe homework and practice problems? So again, we'd love you to share in the chat. I'm going to give about 30 seconds for everyone to go ahead and let us know. Right. Thanks for everyone who's sharing in the chat. It looks like a lot of people are thinking about warm-ups and student tasks. If you are thinking about student tasks, I just want to highlight that at last week's webinar, we highlighted a video of a teacher who was using ASSISTments in group work for collaborative tasks in class. So it was a great way to just highlight how you can do that in the classroom. Even if students aren't one-to-one, they can do ASSISTments with group work and get that immediate feedback. So thank you everyone for sharing. All right, so moving on to step two, again, just a recap of last week. Step two, students get immediate feedback as they complete their work. So when the student enters the student experience, they're going to do that right through their LMS, no separate logins or passwords to remember. They log in directly with their existing credentials. Students are going to see one question at a time. They're going to get immediate feedback as they submit their answers one by one. I just want to highlight the show answer button. We often get teachers asking, can that be removed? And it cannot, for the reason of if students get stuck on a problem, there's no way to progress with the problem set unless they show answer. But we'll get more into that when we get to the different data scenarios later on in the presentation. And they can also track their progress here in the bar on the left. The feedback students are going to get is corrective feedback. So when they get a problem correct, they get that message that they're correct, they know they're doing the work right, and they can move on. If they do not get the problem correct, they get a message, sorry, try again. And they can, like Carrie said, they can persevere and try again and work through their mistakes. And when they get it right, eventually they're going to get that positive corrective feedback. If a student gets stuck, I told you I'd be talking about this again, that's when they're expected to press the show answer button. And that's definitely something to message to your students as you get started, that you can see when they press show answer, and there will be consequences, but they will be told that what the answer is so they can plug that in so they can move on to the next problem. And when the student's done with each one of the assignments, they get to see their student assignment report where they can hover over each one of these IDs on the left to review the question. They get to see their individual score in addition to the class score. And some people are saying that the class score isn't something they want on this report. So our product team is looking into that. And this is where they're going to see any feedback and scoring they get for open response questions. All right, so I will pause here for a minute. And if you have any questions about step 1 and step 2, whether it's content that we have to assign, getting access to those assessments, or anything about the student experience, we'd love to hear them in the chat now. And we will have several question breaks throughout. So if you have something warming up in your mind that you want to ask, you can certainly ask at one of our other breaks. So I'll just give about 20 seconds or so to see if there's any questions, and Carrie can bring those to my attention. All right. Well, I think that means we can move on. Okay, so today we're going to kick it off by talking about step 3, teacher analyzes data instead of grading. So in the last presentation, if you were with us, we were following the path of a new teacher who was new to assessments using illustrative math. So today we're going to be following Catherine, who is an 8th grade math teacher who uses illustrative math for her curriculum. She's using assessments for the first time, which might be like some of you out there. So let's consider what she needs to know in order to analyze assessments data. First, Catherine needs a quick refresher on how to access the assessments data report. So just a reminder that there are 2 ways for you to access assessments data. One is directly through your LMS in your teacher account. So if you're using Google Classroom, that means you're going to go into the assignment, you're going to click on the assessments link within, and that's going to bring you directly to the assignment report. If you're using Canvas, you'll log right into your Canvas account with your existing credentials. You'll find the assignment with an assessments link within. It doesn't have the A logo, but if it'll say, click on the link to complete the assignment or view the data right above. So when you click on that link, you'll also be brought into the assessments data report. And just a reminder, when the students click on this link within their student account, they will be brought into the assignment. But since you're logging in with a teacher account, you'll be brought directly to the data. The other way that you can access assessments data, and I'll actually go ahead and demo this for you live. This is regardless if you use Canvas or Google Classroom, you'll go right into assessments, make sure you're logged in. You'll see your name appear in the upper right-hand corner of the screen, and you'll click on My Assignments. You will have a full populated list, and mine is spinning because I have lots of assignments in this tab, but you'll see a list of all the assignments that you have ever assigned across all different classes. And let's see if I have it in a new tab here. Here we go. There we go. And when we click on the link right here that says view report, that will bring you into the report. And just a reminder, on this level here, you get to see if any students have completed the work, how many problems there were in the report, when it was released, if you set any due dates, and any corresponding standards that were tagged. I just want to note here that every question in the assessments content library aligned to Kendall Hunt has been tagged with Common Core standards. So regardless of whether you were doing any specific tagging, just note that we have tagged every question. So whether you're a standards-based grader or whether you are a kind of assignment grader, that material is there for you. That information is there for you. Okay, so Catherine can now access her report. She knows she can go right through her LMS or right through assessments. Now she needs to understand how to analyze the data, to understand which students need more support and with what concepts. So just a quick entry point of reading data, and then I will go ahead and demo it for you. And we have some interactive pieces where you get to play around with the data as well. But first is class average. When you look at the class average on the assessments data report, that's going to highlight, that's going to quickly assess whole class understanding on the assignment. The problem average, which we'll talk about where that is, helps to identify which individual problems are going to need whole class review. Think about your homework review, and you may be asking yourself, I don't even know what question to start with. The problem average on the report is going to highlight where you can start. Common wrong answers, which are on the assessments data report, helps you to facilitate whole class understanding about common misconceptions. And then individual student score or problem by problem or by standard helps you to identify students who need small group reteaching or review. So this is a slide to come back to after we're done today, once you really dive into your data, that can show you exactly what you can do with these four key pieces of data on the report. So I'm going to go ahead and go into a live assignment report right now and just talk about some of these features in a little bit more depth than I did at new user part 1. So once we are in the assignment report, right up at the top, we get to see the title of the assignment. And just a reminder that you can change the name of the assignment to support students or to help your organizational process. Down here, we get to see the student progress cards. So this is going to tell you right off the bat how many students were assigned. And then each one of these cards is going to tell you how many students did not start, and will actually tell you which ones those are. In progress tells you students who have started but not finished the assignment. And you will get some information here when they last accessed the assignment to work on it. And then we get to see the list of students who completed the assignment and when they completed the assignment. If I move down on the report a little bit, let me zoom in for you all. This is the performance summary. So right over here, we can click on the title of the problem, and we'll get to that in just a minute, but we can click on that to see what the problem is. And just at a glance, we get to see the number of students who got the problem correct on the first try, the number of students who got it correct eventually, whether it was the second, third, fourth, fifth try, and then what students got it incorrect. Another way to say incorrect is had to press show answer. They had to be given the answer so that they could move on with the problem set. So at a glance, you can see what problems may not need as much support right here if most students got it correct on that first try. And then when I look and see the red bar a little bit higher, that tells me that problem may need a little bit more support. As I move down on the report, I get to the details report. So this hones in a little bit on each individual problem and each individual student. So here I get to see the average score for the entire problem set. Each one of these columns represents a different problem. And again, when you click on that header here, that'll open up the problem. I'll dive into that in a minute, I promise. For each individual problem and part, we get to see what the average was for that individual section. If there was any common wrong answers, and I just want to highlight this, that 1 was the common wrong answer for this problem. And this means that 27% of the students who got it wrong said an incorrect answer of 1. As I move down, I get to see each individual student's information. And I want to show you something here before I dive in, that over here on the right with this little eyeball, I can hide or unhide student information, average score, depending on how you're using this data. So I just wanted to unanonymize that just so I could see what students, and these are all internal people with assessments, so I'm not sharing any incorrect information, but just wanted to highlight that we can look at the student names or hide them right up here at the eyeball. So for demo student A, for example, I can see the average score for this assignment. I can see how they performed. And then I can see if they used any hints on this problem. And a good number of problems in the Kendall Hunt Illustrative Math curriculum do have embedded hints in them. And then total amount of time spent. 43 is not a stellar score, I'll tell you right now. So I want to dive a little bit deeper into this data. So the first way you can do that is to figure out what these symbols mean. The colors do correspond to what we saw above: correct, correct eventually, and incorrect. But on a deeper level, I can also go to this scoring guide up here. The scoring guide is going to tell me what these additional symbols mean. So the triangle tells us that there was a hint that was used. And if we see the little X there, that means that that was an incorrect attempt. So if you're ever wondering what those symbols mean up there, we can go right here to the scoring guide. If I want to dig a little bit deeper on each student, I can also click on their name. When I click on the student name, I'll see a student details report. Now, this is literally the play-by-play for each student. It's going to give me the information of when the problem started, and I can open up the problem here and actually look at it in student view. I get to see how long it took them before they resumed the problem or entered their first answer, how many attempts it took them before arriving at the correct answer, their score. And this is also one of the places we're going to leave feedback if you choose. We'll get back to that in just a moment. But again, just to show you that one more time, if you're looking to dive a little bit deeper in on the student, you can click on their name, and that brings them to the student details report. You can toggle through students up here at the top if this is a view that you like to see. So it makes it a little bit easier to see individual student data. If, for example, a student really does poorly on an assignment, or you're doing some reteaching, which we'll talk about later, if we hover over this student's name and click on the triple dot, we have the option to delete student progress. So what that's going to do is it's going to wipe out all the student submissions, give them a clear slate, and when they click back into the assignment report, they're going to be able to restart the assignment after having that reteaching opportunity. Carrie, any questions coming in at this point? I'm still going to talk about the essay scoring and a couple other little elements I think I'm going to review, but that's a lot of information. So anything coming in at this point, Carrie?
I do not see any in the chat at the moment.
Okay, awesome. And I just want to vocalize, I know this is a lot of information, which is why we're going to give you a little bit of time to unpack this after we're done here. So if you have some if you have assigned some open response work, which is a big part of the illustrative math curriculum, students having to explain their work or show their work, there's two ways that you can actually go in and score the student work and leave feedback. You may decide that you just want to look at that student work and kind of assess how they're doing, project this in front of your classroom and talk about different responses. That's perfectly fine. But if you do want to go through and incorporate this into the student score, let me show you that one more time. You can click on the word assess, which doesn't exist here because these have already been scored. But when I click on assess, I'm going to be able to review the question right up here. And then I can score on a 4-point scale. So notice we have 2 out of 4, 2 out of 4, all the way down. This will translate over to the assignment report as a percentage for students. And then you have the option to leave any kind of written feedback. So you can give some nice positive feedback. If you want more specifics, you can leave that, ask a question to the student. That's up to you. So again, just to show you over here, you can see on the, over here on the details report, the feedback that you left for each individual student. And this is actually the other place, let me just go back here, that you can leave student feedback. So this student has not received feedback for this question. So you can click here, or you can look at this in individual student view. So on the details report, I can see that there are 2 questions that are not scored here. So you can leave that score, whatever you choose to put in there, leave feedback, and then that will carry back over to the assignment report. Teachers often ask, so I'm going to jump ahead here, how does the student know what you left them? So there's no automatic messaging that lets students or classes know that you've left feedback. So what we recommend is to go into your LMS, Google Classroom or Canvas, and message your students. Right now I'm in a student account, that you've left feedback for this assignment. So here's just an example. I want you to all click back into the ASSISTments link to see your feedback, or I've left some feedback, click in and respond here in the chat, just a couple examples. So when the student, after they've done and after you've left feedback, clicks back into their assignment, here's what they're going to see. They'll see a score and they'll see whatever feedback that you left them. All right. So I am going to come back over here and just recap some of that, and then you're going to have a little chance to unpack. So the assignment report at a high level glance, you get to see the title, student progress cards to track progress on the assignment. And just a note, you can be using ASSISTments in class for those student task statements or for homework. So if you're assigning in class, you can actually track who's working on the assignment and look at that data in real time. You can see the performance summary, so you know which problems may need a little bit of support. And then we'll dive into student details and the details report. On the progress cards, just to note that when you hover over or click on each one of these, you will be able to see the timestamps as well. The performance summary gives you that bar graph so you can identify which problems and how many students were in each one of these categories. Don't forget about delete student progress. We're going to come back to that later. So if there is a student who needs a little bit of reteaching, that's found right on the triple dot next to the student's name. The scoring key is accessible by clicking on the I, which is right next to hide columns at the top of the details report. And just a note that the breakdown of the color scheme is going to be consistent among these reports. The problem details, that's what I forgot. I'm sorry, everyone. I'm going to go back and show you that. I skipped over it twice. So when we click on one of these problems, over here on the right, we're going to see a bar with all of the problem details. That includes the student view of that problem. We'll get to see any aligned standards, the correct answers that were allowed, and then just another way to see the student breakdown for this individual question. And we can toggle through questions just by clicking next or previous, and we can also expand it. So if this is something you want to present to the class, you can expand or collapse so that's nice and viewable for your students. The student details report, which is accessible by clicking on the student's name, is going to give you the play-by-play for each student. How many attempts that they made, how much time they spent on each one of these attempts. And this is also one of the places that you can score and leave feedback for open response questions. The other way for scoring and feedback is right on the details report. So you can click assess, and that will bring you into the scoring page. A couple notes here that student averages are only impacted if you decide to enter an open response score. So like I mentioned, if you are just looking to kind of review student work and initiate a discussion based on student work, you can certainly do that and the student score will not be affected. And also a note that make sure you have a routine in place for prompting students to check back with scores and feedback. I mentioned one idea of just leaving a comment right in your LMS, or you could just make it a regular routine that students should be checking that before they come in the classroom. And one other thing I forgot, guys, this is my first time presenting this webinar, so I apologize, but I'm going to go right over here and show you the standards report. So this is the problem level report. Up at the top of all reports, we have a standards button. So that's going to give you all the same information here at the top with the different progress cards. And this is going to break down the assignment by question and by standard. So here we get to see that these were the 3 standards that were tagged in this problem set. 2 of those problems align to this skill, 4 of the problems align to this skill, and 1 to this 6th grade skill here. You still have the option to hide columns, hide names if you're sharing this data out. And it tells you the score for each one of the students if we were looking at this in the lens of standards rather than by problem. All right, so again, this wasn't much of a space in between, but the standards represented in the problem set will be right at the top. The number of problems aligned to each standard will be directly below, and then the student average score across problems aligned with that standard are in blue right down here. All right, so I'm not seeing any questions come in the chat. So I'm going to give you just about 3 minutes to click the link in the chat that Carrie is going to share. This is basically a PDF version of a report. Our assignment reports, because of data sharing, are inaccessible by teachers that are not in the same LMS and in the same account. So Carrie is sharing this right here in the chat. So I'll start the time in a minute, but I just wanted to highlight a few things. So your work for the next 3 minutes is just to click around and kind of familiarize yourself with the report. And then we're going to have a little quiz section to make sure you know where you're looking to find different specific things. Anything that's circled here, Carrie is a whiz at doing these kind of interactive things. So anything you click on will jump down to what it's going to look like when you're interacting with these live, just so you can kind of see how it's going to perform if you were using it live. All right, so Carrie shared that in the chat. I'm going to start the timer for 3 minutes, and all you're doing right now is familiarizing yourself with that report. But of course, post any questions that you have as you're doing so. At about another minute and a half. All right, we're going to have about 30 more seconds, and then we're going to give you a little quiz. Carrie, would you mind putting that, that link in the chat one more time? Someone just came into the webinar a little bit late, so they have access. Thanks, Carrie. All right, so hopefully everyone had a chance to look through that report. And now, like I said, we're going to do a little bit of a quiz in the chat. And all I ask of you, I'm channeling my teacher self. I was in the classroom just 2 years ago. And I don't want to feel like I did the first week of class with 8th graders not responding. So please share your answers in the chat. Okay, so my first challenge for you is to go to that assignment report that Carrie shared and share in the chat, what is the average score on the assignment? We're hopefully asking some real basic questions here, just so you can learn how to navigate the assignment report. So light up that chat, everyone. What is the average score on the assignment?
I am getting a lot of 60% coming into the chat.
And you know what, Carrie? That is wonderful because I'd love to zoom in on this, but my computer's not letting me. And for everyone else, I see 60, 60, 60, which is really nothing to celebrate. 60% is not, but that can be found right up here on the detailed report. Thank you so much. I know all the teachers in the group are really feeling me here with the participation. So thank you again. All right. Next question, go over to that PDF that Carrie shared. Which individual problem had the lowest average score? Go ahead and find that answer and share in the chat. Which individual problem had the lowest average score? And we'll do about 25 seconds for each one of these questions. Which individual problem had the lowest average score?
I am seeing P2 Part A coming up a lot.
All right, let's see. So right up here at the top of the details report, that gives us the average per student, per question. And absolutely, the lowest score is 50%. You guys are rock stars right now. Let's see, problem 2, part A. Amazing. All right, just a couple more, guys. I want you feeling super comfortable when you leave today. So how many students started but have not finished the assignment? How many students started but have not finished the assignment?
I am seeing one student started but did not finish the assignment coming into the chat.
And you are right. I wish I had some kind of music to show you guys you're correct. So that's right up here at the top. One has not started. And I just want to note that Canvas does not have this feature, but Google Classroom does, that when you click into the assignment in Google Classroom, you get to see how many students turned it in. So that tells you how many students completed it. And then you can also aside the report, but when you come to my assignments, you can see right here how many students did complete it. But yes, down to the assignment report level, you can see who is actually in progress. Amazing. 3 more questions, guys. I see some people have 3 out of 3 so far. Oh, so sorry, I went too quick. So for problem 1, part A, on what attempt did student 3 arrive at the correct answer? There's a couple different ways to access this information. But for problem 1, part A, how many attempts did it take student 3 to arrive at the correct answer? Share in the chat.
I am seeing 2 or the second attempt coming in a lot in the chat.
Amazing. I love it. And some of you may have seen it when I press this button too fast, but let me just show you real quick. So over here, there's 2 ways. I can either look at the student details report and I can see that student 3 here had 1 incorrect attempt. Then they got it right on the second try. And then I can also look at the symbol here, which is the orange box with the X next to it. And if I click on the scoring guide, that tells me that the student got it correct eventually, had 1 incorrect response. You guys are kicking butt here. 2 more questions. The next, how many questions from the problem set were aligned with the Common Core Standard 7RP A to B? Ratios and proportions.
I am seeing 2 come into the chat.
You got it. 2 is correct. And I see a question there too, which I can address
Yeah.
in just a minute.
I was going to ask.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, so on the standards report here, right underneath the Common Core skill, we see the number of problems that are aligned there. So we'll do that last question, then we'll stop for a question break. So the last question, I challenge you to find what were the correct answers to problem 1, part A. The correct answers for problem 1, part A. All right, and the answers aren't coming in as quick, so I am seeing correct answers. Amazing. And I'll just show you one more time where you can find that information. So if I go back up to the top, there's really 2 places you can click. You're going to click on the problem title, whether it's here at the top of the details report or right over here in the performance summary. And that bar on the right is going to tell you any correct answers for that problem. All right, so let's
Do you
see.
want to address the question?
Yeah, someone asked in the chat, does in Google Classroom, will it be marked automatically turned in, or let me pop over here just so you can see, or will the student have to manually press, turned in? So the student can manually press turned in. They don't have to. When ASSISTments is completed and turned in, it will automatically mark an assignment as turned in. But just to note that if students can manually mark as done. So if Google Classroom says they're done, but their data is not in the assignment report, that means they figured out this sneaky workaround and they may be marking things as done, even though they're not completing it. We ran into a lot of students finding that little trick during the pandemic last year. All right, great job, everyone. Thank you for going through that with me. This is the first time Carrie and I are trying out this new structure, and hopefully you found it super easy, and that was the point, so you're feeling a little bit more comfortable with just where to find data on the assignment report. So now we're just going to give you a few additional minutes to explore on your own and see any questions that you have, or even just things that you want me to demo one more time. Again, the idea is you can leave this webinar today and be ready to go with the data reports. So I'm going to start the timer, and we'd love to hear questions or just kind of poke around a little bit and see if there's anything that you need clarification on.
I had a question come in as well, since we're kind of opening up to questions at the same time. If you're giving the same assignment, so if you assign to 2 separate classes, how does the data show up for you as the teacher?
Yes, if you assign to 2 different classes, there will be 2 separate reports, one for each individual class. So all assignments are generated specifically for a class and a class roster. So just as an example, while others are exploring, if we assign something to 2 classes, let's see if there's an example in here, you're going to see the repeated assignment. Once will be for the first class that you assign to, once will be for the second class you assign to. And if you are looking for data for an individual class, we have these filters on the top. So you can say, you know, I'm looking to filter by just my ASSISTments webinar class, period A, period B, but there's no way to merge them all together.
So on right or wrong questions, not necessarily essay or open response question, is there a place for students to show and share their work?
Only if there's an open response question. And in part 1, we talked about creating routines for your students. So I think in general, in addition to ASSISTments, having a very clear method for students to show their work, submit their work is really important. So it might be taking a picture and submitting through their LMS. We had a teacher today who was generating or curating their own problem sets and just adding an open response question to the end where they can submit a picture of their worksheet or a picture of the work that they did all as a whole. So that's going to be kind of a a classroom management or classroom specific thing that you might come up with. Anything else coming up in the chat, Carrie?
No, would it be all right if I kind of shared my routine? Like
sure, absolutely.
For that. So when I was in the classroom, I would send them home with the IM problem set. So they would have that, but then they would type in their answers in the computer, and then they can go back to their paperwork and sort of like adjust and use that immediate feedback. And then they would bring in that like printed problem set into class so that we can then analyze the data using the data we got from ASSISTments, and then they had their actual like physical written work in front of them as well. So that was kind of the routine I built in my classroom. So using both the program and then having the printed version, which I found very helpful.
Thanks, Carrie. Yeah, and just to clarify, yes, we are an immediate feedback platform. We're an online tool, but most of our staff are former math teachers. So we absolutely value the work that students are going to show and the work they're thinking that they're submitting and processes. So again, there's lots of different ways that we can share. We'll talk about the teacher corner, which we have at the end as we close up. And that's a place where you can go to find different ideas that of how teachers are using ASSISTments in their classroom. One other question or one other thing I want to highlight, and then I'll come back and we'll do a few questions, is on the details report. This is kind of answering one of the questions, is if you're looking to kind of curate the scores across classes, maybe you're doing some kind of assessment and you need to collect some data. On each one of the reports, you're going to see a triple dot to the right of the eyeball. And this is where you can either upload scores to Canvas or Google Classroom, or you can download these scores as a CSV file. So you could download and then merge on a spreadsheet and have all of your results in one place. Carrie, I see one other question coming in. Do you want me to answer that?
Okay. Yeah, I'm answering a different one that came in a prep check.
Sure, if we can change the standards to match what we use. So unfortunately at this time, our only aligned standard in ASSISTments are the Common Core standards. We have had interest in having state-specific standards and things of that sort uploaded into ASSISTments and being able to tag of that sort. We're just getting a lot of those requests now. So that is with our product team to kind of see what that would take to upload these and make sure we tag every question individually. All right. So anything that is coming up, Carrie can get to in the chat or raise to me at the next question break. So step 4 of the ASSISTments 4-step process is that teachers and students use data to take action. So for checking back in with Catherine is now confident that she can effectively and efficiently analyze ASSISTments data, find the whole class data report, figure out what student scores are, see how many attempts it took them. Her next thought is how to use the data to inform instruction and discuss the data with students. So I have here a short video, 2 or 3 minutes, that highlights how you can use ASSISTments data, not only to discuss data with students, but also to analyze data ahead of time to inform your next steps. So I am going to go ahead and share this with you all.
I'm Kim Kelly. I'm a 7th grade math teacher at Skyview Middle School. I feel like homework is a very important instructional practice, but it's very frustrating trying to figure out how to collect it, how to assess it, how to provide that feedback to the students. Before ASSISTments, I would actually start class with, get out your homework and let's check it. And we wouldn't even start any math until 10 minutes into class.
Here's what I need for you to do. You're going to get out your homework from yesterday, and you are going to check your answers. Where's your homework? You don't have it, okay? Are you done checking? Boys, are you done checking? Okay, does anyone have any questions? Any of them that you want me to go over with you? 161 centimeters. How'd we do? Feel pretty good about them?
With ASSISTments, my homework procedures can be far more efficient. I can dive right into the common misconceptions, where the errors are. I know where we're struggling better than they do.
68% class average. This is the question we just looked at. The other question that was not so hot, 43% correct.
The burden of finding the starting point is off of me, it's off of the students. We can rely on the data to help us identify the starting points for our discussion. I can launch my class with a common wrong answer or a problem where I identified a weakness. Every step of my lesson is driven in a meaningful way.
Is this line right here part of the perimeter? Yeah, so we need to fill it in and add that one too. That was first common mistake, forgetting to add in those two sides.
It benefits the students, but just as much it benefits the teachers. I'm able to identify the common misconceptions, which allows me to steer my instruction quickly to support my student learning.
And there's my correct answer, okay? So most of us were pretty close. Just a couple little common misconceptions that we were able to fix. Good?
Once you start using ASSISTments, the students have immediate feedback, so they're learning while they're doing their homework. And then as the teacher using that data to drive the homework review process, you spend so much less time going over the homework that the bulk of your classroom time now can be spent on the new instruction. Plus, all of the students are invested. The conversation is around common misconceptions. It doesn't matter if they completed their homework or they don't have it with them, they can participate in the class. There are so many different options available, but I want to be sure that what I'm investing my time in is research-based and proven to improve student instruction. And I can see it with my own students, a difference in their learning. It has actually changed my class.
Oh, watching that video makes me miss being in the classroom. All right, so that was just one example of one of our star teachers sharing how she uses ASSISTments data. So we're going to walk through 3 scenarios with Catherine today on a different common scenario that a ASSISTments teacher may run into on their data report, and how can they analyze it and what can they do with that information. So we're checking in with Catherine again. After teaching Unit 3, Lesson 1 on understanding proportional relationships from 8th grade IM, Catherine assigned a cool down to her students. That evening, she reviewed the resulting assignment report to help plan for her lesson the next day, a perfect scenario on how you can use these cool downs. So here's the data. I'm just going to give you about 15 seconds to just look over this data, and then I'm going to model this first scenario, and then I'll ask you for help for the next ones. All right, so just a little snapshot. So first I want to think about what I noticed from this data. I noticed that one student, student 1, has several dark pink bubbles, which indicate they requested the answer. Remember, that's how we know students press show answer. In addition, this student only spent 33 seconds on the entire assignment, whereas other students spent up to 7 minutes. So what conclusions can I draw from looking at that one student's data? Well, this student either needs more support to master proportional relationships, or we like to call it at ASSISTments, they game the assignment. You might have a less classy way to say it, by pressing show answer without making any thoughtful attempts. So next steps based on this data may be to look at the student details report to see that play-by-play for that individual student. That's going to help you figure out whether the student was just gaming the system, which clearly it looks like they were here, requesting hint after hint with only 1 second in between. And then you can review the data with the student in a one-on-one conference. Sometimes sharing what you know and what data is available to you is all a student needs. So again, given that the students spent very little time on each question and requested lots of help, they clearly were not making their best effort. So we might recommend meeting with the student to reteach and then deleting progress and having them try one more time. All right, so I'm going to ask for a little bit of interaction for this next scenario. So if you're thinking about using ASSISTments for homework, Catherine assigned 5 practice problems on finding the slope of a line from IM 8th grade, Unit 3, Lesson 10 on calculating slope. She wants to quickly assess whole class understanding so she can efficiently review homework the next day in class, similar to what we saw in Kim Kelly's video just a minute ago. So again, I'm just going to give you about 30 seconds or so just to review this data, and then I'm going to have a question for you. All right. So I'm going to launch a poll, and I appreciate anyone who could answer these questions once it goes. Carrie, could you try launching the poll? It's not letting me do it for some reason. But on this poll, one of the questions has to do with what of the following noticings are accurate and which conclusion can you draw from this data? Carrie, are you able to launch the poll?
I was able to hit launch. I believe it's
Okay.
on everyone's screen.
Okay.
Please let us know if it's not. So you can just click on a bubble to answer.
Great. Thank you, Carrie. It must be on my other screen. All right, we'll do about 30 seconds or so to give you time to read your choices and answer the poll. All right. Oh, no, sorry, you guys seeing my kids. All right. Carrie, could you close the poll? Let's see if it shows up on my screen. I apologize, everyone.
I just shared the results. I'm not sure if you can see it, but
I can't. Could you read those to me, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So for number one, the following noticings are accurate. Most students scored poorly on 2 questions.
Absolutely, 100%. Questions 4 and 5, we had an average of 22% and a score of 11%. Those are definitely the questions you want to hit when you're reviewing homework. All right, question 2, Carrie.
What can you conclude about the common wrong answers for problem number 4? The majority put 67% of students who entered a wrong answer put 1/3.
Absolutely correct. And this part we like to review in this webinar session just because it is a little bit confusing. So just to say that one more time, the percent here is the percent of the students who were incorrect that gave this correct answer. Incorrect answer. So if we look down the line over here, every student who answered correctly said the answer was -3. So there's a huge misconception there that you would definitely want to address with your students. Thanks, Carrie. We're playing it by quickly here. So planning next steps based on this data, you could start class by reviewing those 2 low scoring problems with students, paying particular attention to why common wrong answers happened. One of my favorite things to do, and I know Carrie did this in class as well, is to facilitate a My Favorite No activity, where you celebrate all of the positive things that happened in the problem solving process and then highlight for students where they went wrong. And we actually have an artifact that was created during the pandemic last year to support teachers that Carrie will share in the chat. Just a little slide deck about how you could use ASSISTments data to facilitate a My Common No. So she'll post that in there when she gets it. Another thought is you could then assign additional standard aligned questions from the Kendall Hunt library on that particular standard as homework to give students more practice with that individual standard that they missed. All right, so this is our third scenario. And after this, guys, I know this is a lot of information, then we're going to start our wrap up. So lastly, checking in with Karen. Catherine teaches one section of Algebra 2. After teaching her lesson, she assigned practice problems from IM Algebra 2, Unit 3, Lesson 1 on properties of exponents. She gave this as independent classwork. This lesson reviews 8th grade exponent skills, and she wants to see if her students have mastered this concept because what she's teaching is based on that of mastery on that topic. And her mastery threshold for this assignment is 70%. So I'd love to hear from you in the chat. Based on this snapshot of data from this report, what do you notice about this data and what conclusions can you draw from this data? And then we'll talk about next steps. So again, I'll give you about 30 seconds or so just to look at this, and we appreciate anyone sharing in the chat. What do you notice and what conclusions can you draw?
And I just wanted to note time for you. It's 6:07.
Thank you, Carrie. This is our last scenario, and then we'll wrap up. Thanks. Just about 10 seconds left if you didn't have a chance to share in the chat. All right, thank you everyone for sharing. And one person asked, why does it say 8 student and not student 8? I think that was just a setup error on our part for our demo account. All right, so what did we notice about this? 50% of the students received scores below that 70% threshold on this problem set. Conclusions might be that a subgroup of 4 students or more in this class need more support to master that standard on properties of exponents before they can move on with the next lesson that the teacher is going to teach them. So just given time, I'm going to move on to the next section here on what could we do. So you could have math centers in your classroom, pull this group of 4 students and then reteach. There's a couple different ways that you could reassess students. You could reassess them right in that small group. In ASSISTments for homework or for outside of class practice, you could delete their progress and allow students to retry and demonstrate mastery on that skill. Or you could curate a custom problem set aligned with 8EEA1. Find some problems they've never seen before, maybe from a previous grade. Again, right aligned with Kendall Hunt Illustrative Math, and assign that to do some to reassessment for that individual student. So just a few recommendations using the data is that we recommend that you use ASSISTments data report with students to inform instruction at least 75% of the time. This way, students are going to understand that the data that they give to you as your teacher is being used for a very specific person. We also recommend sharing those key data points with your students, even if you're dealing with the younger end of students or all the way up through the high school curriculum. If students know what their data is going towards and that you're using it to meet their needs, they're more likely to buy into the new platform. All right, I don't see any other questions coming up, but I'm going to start working through our wrap-up section, and then we'll stay on for a minute or two at the end to make sure everyone's questions are answered. So in the chat, as we go through this last section, we'd love to just hear from you. When do you think you will review data reports and for what purpose? We saw a lot of people saying that they think doing the warm-up or student task was a great way to get started as an entry point. So when do you specifically think that you're going to review data reports? And I'll have Carrie share those out in just a minute. So a recap of today's key topics is we reviewed step 1 and 2. We talked about step 3, how to analyze the assessments data report. And then step 4, how to use data to inform instruction and discuss with students. You'll get a copy of this slide deck, so you'll have that, that data to look at. You'll have Kim Kelly's video to review if you need a little inspiration. Carrie's going to share in the chat. We do have a feedback survey. We do offer all of our webinars for free. So the feedback that we get really helps us to improve and serve teachers the best way that we can. Please make sure to choose today's date, which is 8/23, and please choose the IM New User Webinar Part 2 for grades 6 through 12. If you have any friends who teach IM in the elementary school, we have a webinar on Wednesday just for them that they can register for. And looking to other webinars that we have from ASSISTments. If you're brand new to ASSISTments, you might want to come to our overview of the fresh new look and new features of ASSISTments, where you'll learn more about curating problem sets, searching by skill, things of that sort. We have a couple 30-minute sessions coming up in the next few months. One is 5 common implementation challenges and how to and our solutions. And then skill builders. We've kind of breezed a little bit over skill builders, but these are mastery-based practice sets. Quick 30-minute session is going to fill you in on everything you need to know. And then later in October, our first targeted webinar of the season on using ASSISTments to address unfinished learning. I'm going to go live to our website for a minute and just show you where you can find a couple really useful resources that you might want to explore when you have some time. First is our help center, where you'll find user resources, getting started guides, FAQs, and then our webinar library and sign up. I was talking earlier about our teacher corner. So our teacher corner has a section right here with teacher artifacts, and this is all different ways that ASSISTments teachers are using ASSISTments in their classrooms and sharing ideas. Some of these are printables that you can use in your classroom. Some are options for using breakout rooms if you're looking to find ways to support students virtually this school year, but a great place to look just to see how other teachers are using ASSISTments. All right, so you can also join our Facebook user community where you can ask questions or just learn from other teachers. And Carrie just shared that in the chat. She also noted that each month we have a raffle where if you share about how you use ASSISTments, you could win a free ASSISTments cup. And anytime you have any questions about using ASSISTments, please don't hesitate to email us at contact@assistments.org, whether it's how to get started or how to implement ASSISTments, or if you're running into any error messages, email us there and we will get back to you. One last note, if you're looking for those Kendall Hunt Illustrative Math assessments, this is also where you're going to email. All right, so I'm going to skip over this last section right here. Carrie, anything in the chat that you want to share that was coming through about how people are going to get started with their data?
Yes, I'm using it after the warm up before student tasks was one that came up a couple different times just to kind of help drive the instruction when it comes to that student task to the cool down as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, once you know how to use the data, it's so valuable and I don't think you'll ever go back. So thank you everyone for joining. Thank you to Angie and Marty from Kendall Hunt for being available in the chat and just learning more about ASSISTments. And I hope everyone has a wonderful evening, and we hope to hear from you, whether it's on Facebook or through our support line, and reach out anytime you have any questions at all. Have a wonderful evening, everybody. Thanks for coming.